Hi crafty friends, this is Kathya. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make really easy Mother's Day cards. They are interactive sweater type cards like spring sweaters. The bonus is you do not need any specialty dies, so let's get started. I'm going to first show you what the card looks like when you put it in an envelope and how you take it out. So this is the card, and you'll see that one part of the card overlaps on the other. So here's the card, and when you open it, you can put a gift card, you can put like a little bundle of flowers, that sort of thing, and the greeting, and you can even put a greeting across the front. I didn't do that here. I'm going to save that for when I'm about to send it out. And on the back, I decided to finish it up by putting the pattern paper on the back too. So let's get started. You're going to need a piece of heavyweight cardstock measuring 9 inches by 5.5, and we're going to score it 2.5 and then 6 3/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to use some pattern paper here to make my life a little bit easier, but if you wanted to, you could stamp on the outer portions of this cardstock. So the first score line is 2.5. So I'm just using a stylus here. I love using a stylus instead of a bone folder because it doesn't crack my paper. And then the second score line is 6 3/4 of an inch. And what you'll see is when you fold it, one piece of the cardstock will kind of overlap on the other. And that's exactly what you want to make it look like it's a closing sweater. So see how that folds right there? So it overlaps just a slight bit right there. Now, because I'm using a really heavyweight cardstock, I'm going to reinforce those score lines by creasing them really well so that they lay a little bit more flat. Okay, the next step is to put your patterned paper onto the front of the card before we do anything else. And I will tell you, just lessons learned for me, is if you use say a striped or a pattern paper that has to match up when you close the card, keep that in mind because I'll show you a mess up that I had on one of the cards I made, but I'm still going to send it. So I'm just cutting down the 2 pieces of 6x6 pattern paper to make sure that I can avoid that hole that's at the top that kind of holds the paper in place. So I'm applying some Barely Art liquid glue here in a fine tip applicator bottle. This is one of my favorite tools to use when I'm doing delicate die cutting and applying glue to those types of things, but this makes it a little bit easier. And I'm going to take that cardstock and I'm going to place it just up against that folded score line right there. Now you could use double-sided adhesive tape, that sort of thing, but I find that the glue really helps give you some wiggle room in case you need to slide it up to make sure that that whole part of the card is completely covered. And then I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and trim off the excess and use that other portion that I'm cutting off for the other side. Okay, so the left side is completely finished. Now I need to glue the other piece of that pattern paper onto the right side, so it looks like a folded sweater. Okay, the next thing I'm going to be using are these Spellbinders Fluted Classic Circles die, and I'm using the smallest one. And the reason I chose it is it kind of reminds me of like a ribbed collar that you would have on a shirt or a sweater. So these are perfect, but you don't need to go out and buy those unless you want them. But these are perfect, so you could actually just use even circles if you want and die cut a ring. But basically we're going to just position the circle right in the front, and to make it easier, I'm going to take this extra piece of cardstock that I cut out and I'm going to fold it in half to make sure that I get the center point of the circle. So this folded piece of a circle die cut is going to help us find center point, and it will help me position the die in place exactly where I want it. So I'm just putting this and placing it between the overlapped pieces of the front of the card. And I'm going to cinch it down so it's nice and tight there, and I'm going to hold it in place. And since this was cut with the die on the left that you see right there, I'm going to basically use a pencil to trace around there so that I know exactly where to place my die on that one side and the left side and the right side. So here I'm tracing this. And don't worry if you get a dark piece of or a dark marking of a pencil, that can be erased or you'll wind up covering it up with the die anyway. So here I am just lining it up with that pencil mark right there. See that pencil mark right there? I'm just going to line it up there, cinch it down, and I'm going to tape it into place before I run it through my die cutting machine. And I'm going to run it in the open position like you see here. Okay, so this has been die cut already, and I'm going to pull that apart, and then I'm going to fold the card so you can kind of see what the next step is. So fold the card closed, put the right side in, and then the other one on top. And then I'm basically going to put that round circle die right in that opening so that I can cut the right side. And what's cool about this is that that die that is the circle piece will fit in like a puzzle piece. It'll just nest right in there, and I'm going to tape it down, and then I'm going to run with the cardstock open. I'm going to run it in just like this through my die cutting machine. Okay, so I ran this through my die cutting machine, and then you can see when I close the card now, it looks like a little collar area. Now it's not perfect, but I'm not worried about that because the collar that we make with the pink cardstock is going to cover all of those pencil lines and the imperfections. So here is the circle die. I'm putting the smallest one in the center, and that's the one I used to actually use the collar cutout, so I know it's going to match. So you want to make sure that you get a die, a circle die, and stick with that one as the main die that's going to create the collar. And it doesn't even need to be as small as the one I chose. You could make something a little bit bigger, so that would work as well too. So what I'm doing is using this fluted edge circle die because it has that really cool ribbed edge, so to speak. And I'm going to cut out two of these because I need one for the outside and I need one for the inside to cover it up. Now somehow I lost the footage of me applying the collar on the front and then trimming it up, but it's pretty simple. You just put it on the edge like I'm doing here on the inside, and then lining up that circle piece with the other part to cover up. And then this just kind of makes it have like a finished look on the inside when someone opens it up so they don't see any mistakes that you made. And then I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and trim off the excess for this collar. Okay, so I just trimmed off the excess on the outside, and this piece I'm going to hang on to, and I'll show you why in a minute. But now when you close it, look at how cute that is. It just looks like a little finished collar, doesn't it? So adorable. Okay, so the next thing I did was I wanted to have a finished polished edge on the left side of the sweater by putting that matching colored cardstock so I could have a place to put my buttons. Now, hindsight's always 20/20 when you're working on a card. So here I'm showing you that it's a half an inch. What would probably have been easier is to put this on at the very beginning of the card before I even cut the collar around, is to put this straight up. It would have been much easier because this cardstock is not very thick either. But I didn't do that. So now I'm just kind of using that round circle area on the collar to tell me exactly where I need to cut the piece of cardstock that I want to put down the middle. And I'm going to use that other piece of card right here, this cutout here, to show me exactly where to cut it. So little bit of a challenge here, only because I didn't have very much at the top to hold onto, but I made it work. And this is going to be such a small piece, but I wanted to have that curved edge so that it nestled right in there. But like I said, if you do this way before you even cut out the collar on the two panels at the front, you'll avoid this altogether. So sorry I'm off camera here, but I just cut that extra piece there in a very slight curve, but I'm just checking it right now to see that it matches up, and it does. So now I'm going to take an eraser, and I'm going to erase those pencil marks there because that's pretty dark and it would be pretty noticeable. So I wanted to clean that up. So I'm just erasing the pencil marks there before I adhere it to the card. Now I didn't even bother erasing the half-inch mark that I put on this piece of cardstock because it's going to be underneath and you won't see it. So I'm just lining it up on the edge of the cardstock here, and it's way longer than I need. I always find that it's easier to trim something off than it is to have to start over and create another piece because it doesn't fit your cardstock and doesn't go long enough. So I'm just trimming off the bottom of that. And now when I close it, I have a place where I can actually put the buttons on the front. And I just think this is so darling. Okay, now take a look at this card that I made off screen. This is the one I told you where the lines didn't match up, and it's pretty noticeable, but I don't care. I'm still sending it out because it's a handmade card, right? And it's the thought that counts. So on the flamingo card, I'm going to just call it the flamingo card so you know which one I'm talking about. I decided I wanted the back to be covered in cardstock as well too. Now you might be asking, well, why didn't you put the entire piece on the back before you did all the folding? And that's because that cardstock on the bottom, the heavyweight cardstock base, is way thicker, and if you fold something that's on top of it that's glued, it could cause something to tear. So I just think it's better to put panel pieces on it and glue it, but avoid the score lines. Now, if you stamped the back and the two front panels of this card, you wouldn't have to worry about this. The cardstock I'm using is heavyweight, like really heavyweight, like for a card base. And so I felt like if I avoided those score lines, it would help this card close a little bit easier. But my goal was to kind of make it look like it was a sweater altogether. And I don't mind that the card doesn't stay closed. And of course, I didn't want to put a belly band on it because otherwise you'd have to have maybe like a slimline size to make it look like it had a belt. But I wasn't interested in doing that. So I just decided to put the cardstock on the back. And I do not care that the flamingo pattern doesn't match. If you wanted to, you could take some time and do some measuring to make sure that the panels matched. This was an afterthought anyway. But now when you close it, the front has the finished edges, and the back of the card now actually has patterned paper as well. So it kind of looks like it's all cohesive and all together. Okay, so I had to trim off the excess paper on the bottom, and that's perfect because now it's flush sitting alongside the cardstock and it looks finished and polished. So here is the look of the sweater card so far. Here is the back. And then I'm going to be putting some buttons down this strip right here. To make this look like it's, planned out, I'm actually going to use a ruler to put pencil marks, and those pencil marks are going to show me exactly where to put my buttons, which are actually going to be flat back pearls. So you can use anything you want. You can even use sequins if you don't have any flat back pearls. You can use gemstones, anything you have in your stash. So I'm just spacing these 1 inch apart and then stopping when I get sort of towards the middle. And I don't even bother erasing those pencil marks because that's where my glue is going to be. And I'm going to be using these white flat back pearls to place on the piece of that pink cardstock there. I forgot to mention, you could even use real buttons here. And for if you're really overzealous, you could actually take those buttons and poke holes through the holes where you would actually sew and sew them on. That would make it look really, really cute. So I thought for the front it'd be really cute if I put Happy Mother's Day with a die cut Happy Mother's Day set, but I don't have anything like that, so I'm probably going to put like either hello or love you or something like that on the front, and then on the inside I'll just stamp Happy Mother's Day for these. But you could even die cut some flowers like in a bouquet type pattern and put them on the inside. And what I plan on doing with this one is to put a little mini envelope that I die cut or that I use for my envelope maker, and I'm going to put a gift card in there. So this is another one I made off screen, used a different type of pattern paper, and I used gold buttons to put on the front buttons. They're actually baubles. And then here's that mismatched one again that really drives me nuts, that I was actually trying to pay attention to what I was doing and I messed it up anyway, but that's okay. I'll still send it because it's handmade. Now, do you see this pattern piece of paper, the 1/2 inch that goes all the way down? I took that cardstock and just made my own ribbing using my scoreboard in 1/4 inch marks. So you can do that too to make it look like your piece is ribbed. So I did that and I thought that would be easier. Now here's another one I made off screen. This one's a little bit different. I could do a tutorial on this one if you want me to show you how I did this one. That one, I have a different way of doing it that turned out much easier. So I can do that one if you're interested. Let me know in the comments below if that's something you want to see. And then here is the one that's kind of my favorite. This is a die cut that I made by design. I designed it on the Brothers Scan and Cut machine called Canvas Workspace, and I put eyelets in there. And so it's not quite interactive, but at least you can see that it's open down the middle. It folds under, and then I used a hole punch to create the eyelets, and then I threaded ribbon through it. And in the background, I just used a cover plate die to have it make more interest. So here are my cards. I hope you have some inspiration to move forward with this particular card design. Let me know if you think you're going to try it. Thank you so much for watching and sticking around. I hope you have a great day. Happy crafting, and ciao for now.